To the casual observer today, the most serious threat to the Kruger National Park would likely be the assault on its rhinos. But a former park warden says the real danger lies in the park's immediate future.
National parks are there for their scientific, for their spiritual and educational values. They're not here as resorts.
A biologist with 30 years work experience in the park, Dr. Solomon Joubert, is fighting the Kruger's commercialization. The looming hotel developments inside its boundaries have him worried.
It's a dramatic deviation from national park philosophy.
It's 86 years since the Kruger was proclaimed a national park, a haven for wildlife then being shot out by hunters. The South African national parks have long been associated with pristine bush and the preservation of the country's natural heritage, but it seems that's all about to change. For many, the Kruger Park has always been about memory and atmosphere, but for others, it's a relatively new experience.
Most of our older people, they don't even know what a rhino looks like. Now we're very much excited to visit the park.
Faith Dlamini speaks for a community that today owns a lodge with direct access to the park via a bridge across the Crocodile River. It's the result of a successful land claim and has given local people meaningful work.
Most of our kids didn't even want to do tourism because they didn't know what is it to do with their black community. Tourism, we only knew it for tourists who are coming from abroad.
Dr. Joubert isn't concerned about places like Njajaan, as it's a contract park and outside the Kruger proper. His focus is on the planned Radisson Blue Hotel just inside the Malalan Gate and with links to Tokyo Sexuales and Velapanda holdings. He says the implications for local business could be serious. This hotel looks across the Crocodile River into the park, which is its main draw card. Yet a park and ride facility for the envisaged development is planned on the opposite bank. Dr. Joubert says the park authorities have gone too far.
Sandparks have exceeded their mandate. In taking the strategic decision to go this way, they have not consulted in any way.
Sandpark's chief executive, Dr. David Mabunda, has spoken out about old-school conservationists in apparent reference to Dr. Joubert. But he referred us to consultant and former Sandparks board member, Professor Willem van Riet, who thinks it's a storm in a teacup.
I don't see any huge impact. I don't actually understand why this groot behaai is going on about this smallest of little lodge development right on the southern boundary in one of the most disturbed valleys you have in the whole of Kruger.
Joubert says the fuss is not about just one hotel. He says the planned Malalan and Skakuza hotels will add 480 beds to the park.
Other than Skakuza rest camp, it exceeds the number of beds in any of the other rest camps.
Joubert's point is that the southern Kruger is just too busy, a point supported by a survey on the carrying capacity of the park carried out by UNISA 13 years ago.
If you find a pride of lines, it's in no time. There are 40, 50 motor cars around there. And that takes away all the pleasure of the wilderness.
Game Lodge owner Sally Koenig makes her living from tourists who come to experience the Kruger's wild outdoors. While she and Solomon Joubert differ when it comes to the commercial development of the park, they both claim that Sandparks failed to inform the public of their plans. Did South African national parks ever tell you what their plans were?
Not one word. I only knew about it when I read about it in the travel news, that Radisson put out a press release.
Koenig is part owner of the nearest private establishment inside the park to Malalan Gate, with an average occupancy of only 40%. She says the planned hotel's 24-hour access, while her guests have to comply with a gate closing time of 6 p.m, will further reduce her numbers.
It takes a long time to build up a reputation. We were coming right, we were getting our occupancies, we were fine with the World Cup, then the recession hit us, and then to be hit with this on top, it's a double whammy.
Between the lodge owner and the conservationist is citizen Gerard Smit. He first visited the Kruger in the 1950s and has been over 100 times since. When he heard of the planned luxury hotel development, he became an activist, starting a Facebook pressure group called Icona.
I realized that there's very little public participation and very few people were informed about this. In December of 2010, I submitted my personal objection.
Gerard, why were you concerned?
The Kruger National Park is not a holiday resort. It's a nature reserve. It's a conservation area, which should be a haven for fauna and flora. If we listen, we hear birds chirping, and I would like my great-grandchildren to also experience that one day.
As he's speaking for Sandparks on this Malalaan Hotel development, we asked Van Riet whether stakeholders had indeed been consulted.
By the time I was asked to review, then this groot boei had already started. So I can't really say. To me, it appeared that it had happened over quite a long period of time.
Rather than the subject of consultation, Van Riet seemed more focused on the fact that the Kruger Park today is a very different place from 30 years ago. He says Sandparks feels that new tourist markets don't appreciate the traditional park offering.
There's these three broad tourism groups. The standard people who always come, like they have come in the past, the international visitors who make up 25%, and then the emerging group of people. People asking facilities that we have not identified as what they would need.
While evidence of this need was not produced, the operation of this hotel will nevertheless be revolutionary for the Kruger. Beyond the 24-hour access will be a park and drive facility, an activity not normally associated with a national park.
If you take the old Skukuza, and after 7:30 there was nothing for people to do. A lot of the activities that will be envisaged inside this new development will be things that you could do after that, the restaurant or the bar.
Salman Joubert disagrees with Sandparks' thinking that the emerging black market doesn't appreciate the Kruger Park for what it is. He says research shows otherwise.
Sandparks itself says that in '94, only 4% of the tourists were people of color, black people, let's call them. Now it's up to 26%. That's a 600% increase. That should be encouragement itself.
While talking figures, lingering in the background is the subject of finances. In a presentation to Parliament last year, Sandparks indicated a reliance on donors.
Well, the Kruger Park is one of the most unique national parks in the globe because it actually gets 85% of its funding from its own sources.
So Sandparks sees in this hotel a further revenue stream, estimating that it will get 800,000 rand from this Malalaan development in its first year of operation. Gerard Smith says the inclusion of the proposed hotel in this official document shows it will go ahead regardless, and he's come across another document that concerns him.
I'm in possession of a document indicating Sandparks' plans for a PDZ, a Periphery Development Zone, 2 kilometers wide, inside the park.
Which is not public knowledge and would likely mean much more development. Van Riet says he's unaware of the plan, but he says new transport routes soon to be established around the Kruger will have an obvious impact on the park.
I think we need to rezone Kruger or review Kruger. These three big access routes, the one along the south to Maputo, the one going through the middle through Massanger Dam, or the route through Pafuri when they build the bridge across the Limpopo River. Each of those three through roads will attract development.
A Kruger project without much controversy is Faith Dlamini's successful land claim downriver from the proposed Malalaan Hotel. In this case, 4,000 hectares have been added to the park and a people's dignity restored.
We are very much happy, very proud. And I'm sitting here, you see it's beautiful. It used to be a bush, but now I can't believe it. It's from our own community, from our own hands.
It seems as if the wilderness itself has been forgotten in this Kruger development debate. With 5 million people and construction and agriculture encroaching on the park, Sandparks has a huge task ahead of it. It seems the solution to this is to find a balance between conservation and development.
Conserving the environment is actually the most important thing we can do on Earth because we are actually dependent on the life-supporting processes that keeps us all alive.
It's important to treasure what your forefathers has kept for you and to allow other people with new ideas to come and teach you how to take care of your treasure.
Even in my days of pension now, there's probably not a day that I don't long for this pleasure.
Whether old guard or new blood, concern for our environment is one area in which South Africans have to find common ground. The Kruger Park is our heritage, and it can't be replicated.